You're about to see a short motion picture. I'll let it run for a few moments, and then when I signal, write in the comments below what happened in the clip. I'll keep this running and you can keep watching, but pause whenever you feel like and feel free to write what you think is happening here. What you're watching is a short movie created by experimental psychologists Fritz Heider and Marianne Simmel back in 1944. In their experiment, subjects that viewed this video as you are right now were instructed to write down what happened in the clip once it had concluded, just like I've instructed you to do. And of the 34 subjects, 33 perceived the shapes as animated beings with human characteristics. The subjects used phrases like blinded by rage, weakened condition, want, innocent, attacks vigorously, and hero to describe these shapes and their perceived actions. And if you've already commented or even just thought about what you would comment, I'd be willing to bet that you too probably gave these abstract shapes moving about on screen some sort of human qualities, motivations, or attributions. Which is weird, right? There's so little to go off of. I didn't say to come up with a narrative, and neither did Heider and Simmel back in '44. The instructions were simply to write what happened. And yet people will consistently add meaning to this meaningless series of still images. And this begs the question, why are we like this? When IGN released their review of Hyperlight Drifter back in 2016, one of the chief complaints by reviewer Brendan Daryl was that the story was wordless and lacking, leaving a little bit too much up to interpretation.
It's wordless, full of interpretation through storyboards and repeating cryptic cutscenes, and I was largely grasping for a handhold as to what the hell was going on in the grand scheme.
And although he praised almost every other aspect of the game, folks still treated it like most IGN reviews and had feedback to share. The big controversy being that the abstract storytelling was portrayed as a flaw. As it turns out, much like your Joy-Cons love performing the cha-cha slide when you aren't paying attention, a lot of people love open-ended and ambiguous storytelling. And as we can see with the Heider and Simmel study, games like Gris with its colorful yet wordless portrayal of loss, Journey's moving cinematics and equally abstract story, and yes, Hyperlight Drifter, all work so beautifully due to our natural tendency to attribute meaning to the unclear. We enjoy drawing our own interpretations of a story, and as human beings are naturally inclined to do so. But why? Why are we like this? What makes it fun, and why are we hardwired to see human characteristics or patterns where there simply are none? How can we take a few random shapes and get thoughts like innocent, hero, and blinded by rage out of it? Well, the short answer is our dumb monkey brains don't like ambiguity, so they fill in the blanks with something that makes sense, but I'm going to try and explain this a little more eloquently than that. So, let's talk about apophenia. It's a typical Tuesday evening. You're walking towards your usual bus stop after work, it's getting dark, thanks to nonstop Excel spreadsheets and emails, your eyes are heavy, mom spaghetti. You've had enough of looking at bad screen, you're ready to get home and look at good screen. And just up ahead you notice a hooded figure wearing a face mask and sunglasses waiting at your bus stop. They seem to be hiding something strange in their pocket. You've never seen them before, it's only getting darker out, no one else is around, and the bus isn't due for a few minutes. You could keep walking and just go to the next stop a few blocks down, or you could simply wait with this mysterious figure. What would you do? Well, monkey brain, you'd probably keep on walking and make absolutely zero eye contact because everything about that situation was sketchy. Or was it? Nah, it really was. Of course it was. The reason being, it was ambiguous. This definitely could have been a mugger, but it also could have been Henry Cavill ready to whisk you away back to his cottage for some PC gaming and light necking. But because of the setting and how they were dressed, you didn't know who this person was, what was in their pocket, or if they were friendly. With so many unknowns, you probably chose to keep walking. In an ambiguous situation where we notice a pattern that could be threatening, folks will almost always err on the side of caution. It gives us the illusion of control over an otherwise mysterious occurrence. But what about when we notice a pattern in a situation that isn't dangerous, just exciting? Have you ever noticed that your team just happened to score right when you put this new koozie on your beer? Have you ever held down the A button as a kid when the Pokeball closed because a friend on the playground once told you that it would help your catch rate? Do you purposely do your summon and gacha games on the toilet because you had some good pulls on it one time? We are pattern noticing machines, originally because it was safe to be. You want to notice when something is sketchy to avoid getting mugged, but because the brain likes to have a say in things it can't change and things it doesn't understand, humans have naturally evolved to noticing patterns everywhere. In superstitions, in conspiracy theories, in shapes, in pieces of toast, in stories. This is a phenomenon called apophenia, a term coined by the German neurologist Klaus Conrad. The tendency to see patterns and connections in random data is something we probably have all experienced at least to some degree in our lives. It's a mental shortcut that sneaks its way into our thoughts. Superstitions, seeing a face in the clouds, thinking that 2 chairs confirms a Smash character. Science historian Michael Shermer calls it patternicity, and has pointed out that our brains don't come with a built-in baloney detection network that immediately helps distinguish between true and false patterns. In other words, the brain muscles, that's it, that's the scientific term. I pulled brain muscles right out of the textbook. The cognition that notices this dude is not someone you want to wait at the bus stop with is the same cognition that came up with your theory for the events in Limbo. In both cases, you were lacking an explicit explanation. Who is this guy? What the hell happened here? So your mind fills in the blanks automatically, regardless of how accurate your evaluation is. This is how conspiracy theories are born. When we don't have the answers, sometimes our mind manufactures them.
I don't need sleep, I need answers.
Like my boy Daniel Kahneman said in his book, Thinking Fast and Slow, the evidence is that we are born prepared to make intentional attributions. Apophenia, patternicity, superstition, these are all ways our mind tries to gain control over something it otherwise has no say in. We have no way to tell what the purpose of this video is, what the true plot of Inside is, or how to react to a stranger on the street. So it makes assumptions to quickly make these things much less foreign. And I think this is why fan theories are so common for games, movies, TV shows, anime, and so on. It may be why there is such a demand for these ending explained videos, and why games with wordless storytelling are so compelling. Because unlike games that make their story very explicit, tales with sparse details invite the player to use the cognition they come well equipped with to write their own story. Plus, it's probably safe to say that if you enjoy content, it will release a little dopamine, and funny enough, there is strong evidence to support that dopamine increases our tendency to notice patterns. We absorb those scattered connections, ascribe meaning to the abstract, and truly engage in the world, drinking up all those little details, soaking up all the breadcrumbs, and chewing on them in our own way. The stages in A Garden Between have items sprinkled about that appear to be mementos from Arena and Friend's friendship, but what these items actually represent is completely up to you. The friends you meet along the way in Journey can help you solve puzzles and progress, but who they are in the context of the story isn't specified. You have to salt and pepper it with your own explanation. After all, the only communication you'll have with them is through a chime that will help them along their way, and vice versa. In a way, stories in games, and really any art medium, are only one half of a whole, incomplete without someone ascribing their own meaning. Now, as a consumer, it's unlikely you'll be satisfied with content that is quite literally just shapes. I think folks need a little more than that. Which is why endings like those seen in Evangelion, Interstellar, and Inside are often met with controversy. But you can bet your rights to Fly Me to the Moon that when things end on a note like this, there is no shortage of fan theories, which is a side of storytelling that I think a lot of people take for granted and something I think a lot of directors and developers want to preserve. You can interpret the colors returning to the world of Gris as the 5 stages of grief, but I can tell you from experience that the developers are not so keen on disclosing what Gris is really about. They want the game to remain as open to interpretation as possible, even if you email them asking nicely because you're doing a detailed analysis of their game. I think what's most fascinating about our gift for noticing patterns, or if you prefer, our need for answers even if we have to make them up ourselves, damn it, is that no 2 stories are ever exactly the same, yet they're all equally interesting to the person who is experiencing them. And this couldn't be more apparent than in the bizarre online comic series Apophenia 357, illustrated by someone called Ghastly, who would draw comic panels based on sentence fragments found in spam emails. The comic pages are presented without text, and it is fully up to the reader to create their own coherent story based on the pictures. As the one consuming the comic, you're forced to engage with it and try to make some sense out of the strip. Ghastly states that the narrative of the strips are not determined by him, he is simply a vehicle for our desires, which makes me uncomfortable in a way I can't quite explain, but I think speaks to an interesting point that I will close on. The patterns we notice on a day-to-day basis are a reflection of our own predispositions. No 2 interpretations of a story are ever exactly the same because none of us are exactly the same. In a way, the world of Hyperlight Drifter could act as a sort of Rorschach blot test, a narrative that reveals more about the person experiencing it than the story itself. If you are feeling discouraged, you may interpret Journey as a tale of hope and triumph that gives you encouragement and a change in perspective. But if you're feeling lonely, it might be seen as a tale of friendship and camaraderie that pushes you to reach out to someone for their benefit and for yours. As we've seen, it's natural to fill in the blanks, to find values or morals in almost nothing, and yes, to overanalyze, over-theorize, and over-dramatize what a story was probably supposed to be about. But maybe that's okay. Maybe sometimes making up your own story is more fun than just being told one. Maybe your explanation is better than the source material. Or maybe it's more about the tale you needed to hear. Maybe that meaning has been with you for a while now, and all you needed was a good story or even a blank canvas to articulate that feeling you've had all along. Hey, real quick before you go, thank you so very much for watching. I have an update. TLDR, I'm taking a little vacation from the channel to set up my new PC and honestly just to recharge a bit, maybe actually play some games instead of just studying them. New vids usually take around 4 weeks of work, so if you factor in my 2 weeks off, the next upload will be late September instead of mid-September. Thank you for understanding, and in the meantime, catch your boy over on Twitch. A huge shout out to my Patreon backers, and if you'd like to join this elite group of classy monkey brains for some bonus content and early access, feel free to interpret that mysterious orange button however you see fit. Until next time guys, take care, and have a damn good one.